Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of Vinyl Fetish. We are unwrapping and listening to a new record by John Coltrane. John Coltrane has a new record out. It's funny because he's been dead since 1967. This is a very special release. I haven't been so excited for a new release. It came out this morning. I was at Millennium right before the door opened to get this vinyl copy, the first vinyl copy in Portland, I think. John Coltrane, Both Directions at Once, the Lost Album. This was recorded in 1963 when Coltrane was kind of in an in-between period. He was leaving some of the hard bop behind. He'd been kind of experimenting with his quartet, which include Jimmy Garrison on bass, Elvin Jones on drums, and the great McCoy Tyner on keyboards, doing some more weird stuff, but also some kind of contemporary stuff. He had a surprise hit with My Favorite Things in the early 60s, which was a sort of like Dave Brubeck's Take 5 was kind of a surprise crossover hit for the people that were kind of trying to be hip and cool and listen to jazz. So all of a sudden everybody had some Coltrane. He was also doing some standards records, like the Ballads record, and he did a record with Duke Ellington, which is a brilliant record, and a Johnny Hartman vocal record, but he was sort of in between two worlds. And this is the period right before Love Supreme in 1965. In 1965, he's starting to bring in raga and Eastern themes, kind of like the Beatles were at the same time. And then right after that, he takes off into the stratosphere with the avant-garde. He leaves this quartet behind. He brings in his new wife, Alice Coltrane, on keyboard, on piano, and Pharoah Sanders. And the next few years of his life, right up to the end, was just sort of way out there avant-garde stuff where he would play solos that lasted over an hour. So this is this kind of in-between link. It's almost like a Rosetta Stone of jazz. And it was found in the basement, apparently, of his first wife, Naima, a very famous John Coltrane song, and put together by his son, Ravi Coltrane, who's my age, a year younger, actually, than me, and is also a great saxophone player. And so to have a new John Coltrane record, to have it, it's just like a revelation that this music has been sitting in a box somewhere since 1963, recorded in New Jersey with the quartet, including McCoy Tyner, who, by the way, is still alive. Andre and I saw McCoy play in New York earlier this year in Greenwich Village at the Blue Note, and he's like 100,000 years old, and his quartet was really the sort of very Coltrane-esque little group that played, and then they kind of set McCoy behind the piano, and he started playing and was brilliant for 2 whole songs, and then they carried him away, and all of us there got to be in the presence of the great McCoy Tyner, who I saw in the early 1980s in Atlanta when he was still at the top of his game. But McCoy Tyner is still with us. Everybody else is long gone. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to unwrap this record and see what it looks like on the inside, and then I'm going to give it a spin on the hi-fi downstairs, which is a little bit nicer than the record player up here, and then I'll be back with the review. So let's do this. It was $23.99 on sale. I remember being angry when records went up to being $7.99 and thinking that was just outrageous that a record could be $7.99. Okay, here I go with my thumbnail, carefully not damaging. This is always exciting. Okay, so here we go. So it has this cool, it's on Impulse, which was Coltrane's old label in the 60s. So it has this, look at this. I can see right through it. All right, so you have this nice clear cover. Oh, this is gonna be nice. And then you have a nice picture sleeve on the inside. Here it is on the beautiful classic Impulse label, looking like it's straight from 1963. Same label that the Love Supreme was on. And there's John. I just finished reading this great book last year about Coltrane's life called Ascension, The Spiritual Quest of John Coltrane. Really great book. And there's another picture of him on the inside. Look at that. This is stuff that is much more tactile than getting it on CD. And then you have, look at this, a little book, pictures of them in the session. There's McCoy Tyner in his younger days. John Jimmy Garrison and Elvin Jones, the greatest drummers of all time. Oh my gosh, look at this. Is it a poster? Holy Moses, look at this. Oh my gosh, it's a poster. Suitable for framing. Look at this. Wow. Sorry, CD buyers. This goes up on the wall. Oh my gosh. And then on the inside, liner notes by Sonny Rollins, the great tenor saxophone player who played with Coltrane and was one of his peers. Look at this. Oh, I can't wait to read every single word of this. Look at this beautiful package. Okay, it's worth the $23.99. Look at that, look at that. And we got all this, and we got, you know, my child will end up using this as a mask. Sorry, Cozy, can't touch it. Okay, so let's take this downstairs and give it a spin, and when we come back, I'll tell you what I think about the new John Coltrane record. The new John Coltrane record. I never thought I'd say that, but I'm gonna go listen to the new John Coltrane record. Well, wow. Let me just say, there were moments where I was almost in tears, maybe a little. How it was special to hear a John Coltrane record from 1963 and 2018 for the first time, especially something as amazing as that. So here's my review. People can go out and listen to it. It's on Spotify. We'll include a link. You can listen to it streaming if you can't make it to a record store. First of all, let me just say, I kind of discovered Coltrane when I was 16 or 17. I got a job working at Turtles Records, January 1981, 16 years old. Thought I knew a lot about music, and then some of the folks there put this record on, A Love Supreme, 1965. I think it was Eric Wiggle who was the one who first put this on. Blew my mind. I've been a Coltrane devotee ever since. His music, for those that are fans, you know that his music transcends. There's just something extra worldly, I don't even know how to, it's just a spiritual experience. And to hear a new Coltrane record, it's just, oh my gosh, I just listened to it. I just listened to it. So let me give you my first impressions. I think one of the first things that listeners will notice is that Jimmy Garrison, the bass player, gets a lot more space, a lot more play right from the beginning. There's a lot of really great solos. Even he brings out a bow, I think, in one piece, and so you get a lot more of those bass solos. Elvin Jones has some great solos. So this comes out right at the same time, or is recorded at the same time as one of my favorite Coltrane records, Crescent, which is a good kind of in-between period. And so I think this title, Both Directions at Once, is really fitting, because Coltrane was sort of in two different, like these little arrows, you know, pointing at sort of these two different directions that he was going in. It's a little bit, it's a lot like Crescent. It fits nicely in with Crescent, which was recorded at the same time. A little bit different than Impressions that came right before this period, which had India, which was a little bit more Middle Eastern feeling. And yeah, so I think it's wonderful. There is a Nat King Cole cover on here, Nature Boy, which is a classic. Sinatra had done it. The version I always think of is the version from the movie Moulin Rouge, with John Leguizamo singing it as Toulouse-Lautrec. But it's a great old song. I think Bowie has a version on the soundtrack. And there's the actual song Impressions, which I'm pretty sure this is the first studio version. That's not the Live at the Village Vanguard record from 2 years before this. So that song is sort of known to Coltrane fans, but I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is the only studio version of it. Really brilliant. There are some songs that haven't been recorded before. They're just called Untitled, and then whatever the number was on the tape. I think the standout on this is the blues song, and it's just called Slow Blues. And one of the reasons it's so great is that Coltrane's, you know, Coltrane was the master of blues saxophone in the bebop genre, that he starts playing and then he lays out and lets McCoy Tyner come in for this long, beautiful solo, and then he comes in at the end almost as if he was inspired. He's like, well, McCoy is playing at this level, I need to play at this level, and it's just the most miraculous playing. It's just sort of transcended. To think of them in this sort of small room in New Jersey, this was all recorded in one evening. It's just, wow. Wow, I really encourage you to listen to it. The CD version, I think the CD version has a second disc that are other versions of these songs, so you get them all on the vinyl version, but the CD version comes with sort of alternative tracks. It's like a bonus edition. A really great package. It's really great. I hope a new generation of jazz fans discover not just the genius of Coltrane, but this sort of particular period where he was in between and experimenting and trying to stay with the standards, like this version of Nature Boy, but also going off into the astral planes. Just, you know, I can't sing the praises of it highly enough. It's just, it was worth the wait from 1963. Only 55 years in the making. And I think that the people who are kind of new jazz fans that are a little put off by the more avant-garde stuff will really appreciate this. If you just sort of know My Favorite Things or maybe a Love Supreme, you'll definitely have access to this. It has a great package, and it has the four greatest musicians who are, I mean, this is one of the things, let me say about this about John Coltrane. If you don't know, he had kind of a philosophy about the quartet and then later the quintet, that you play together, you're in a groove, and then you let someone solo and you are their backing band. But you know instinctively when to come back in as a group and create this crescendo of jazz orgasm. It's just the best stuff. That everything else is compared to this. Everything else in the world of jazz, Tommy Washington, everybody else is sort of compared to this era of Coltrane. So to have this new, I'm going to give it 5 stars, the highest rating on my new rating system. Maybe it should be 5 singles, 5 somethings. I can't, yeah. Well done, Impulse Records. Well done, Ravi Coltrane. Thanks for finding this and delivering it to the world. And we need it right now. We need Coltrane right now to bring us together. All right. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll be doing some more unwrapping and reviewing. And we'll also have plenty of videos with Andy talking about some of the classic vinyl. Subscribe, like, comment, share. Be groovy. And dig John Coltrane. A love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme.